In the dusty lanes of Três Coracoes, a modest town tucked into the hills of Minas Gerais, Brazil, a boy named Edson Arantes do Nascimento spent his earliest years chasing a dream he couldn't yet name. The year was 1940, and Brazil, like much of the world, was marked by hardship. His family's small brick house had a leaky roof, and money was always tight. His father, João Ramos, known to friends and neighbors as Dondinho, had once been a promising footballer himself. An unfortunate knee injury ended Dondinho's own playing days far too soon, leaving him to work odd jobs to support his growing family. But while Dondinho's professional aspirations were cut short, his passion for the game never dimmed, and he quietly passed that fire on to his son. Edson, nicknamed Dico by family, showed an uncanny coordination almost as soon as he could walk. He could balance anything on his feet: a mango, a tin can, even a knotted rag. The family could not afford a real football, so Dico and his friends improvised, fashioning balls from stuffed socks or old grapefruits wrapped in twine. Hours would slip away as they played barefoot in dusty streets or on grassy lots, calling out imaginary play-by-play as they mimicked their local heroes. The neighbors often stopped to watch the wiry boy who moved with a blend of speed, grace, and instinct that belied his years. The nickname, Pelé, arrived almost by accident. As a young schoolboy, Edson mispronounced the name of a local goalkeeper he admired, Bilé, and his classmates teased him, calling him Pelé. Though he bristled at first, the name stuck. Before long, Pelé would be a name chanted by millions, but in those early days it was a reminder that greatness can rise from playful beginnings. By the time he was 11, Pelé was already the standout among his peers. Dondinho recognized the spark and became both coach and mentor, teaching him not just technique but the art of reading the game. "The ball is your friend," Dondinho would say. "Treat it kindly, and it will listen." Pelé absorbed every lesson, developing a control so precise it seemed the ball truly obeyed him. In 1954, Pelé joined an amateur youth team called Bauru Athletic Club Juniors, coached by Waldemar de Brito, a former national team player with a keen eye for talent. De Brito immediately sensed something extraordinary. He pushed Pelé to sharpen his left foot, strengthen his stamina, and study positioning. Under de Brito's guidance, the young forward's scoring became relentless. Match after match, Pelé dazzled crowds, cutting through defenses as if defenders were rooted in place. By age 15, de Brito knew the boy's talent could no longer be hidden. He arranged a trial with Santos Futebol Clube, a first-division team in the state of São Paulo. The club's staff watched skeptically as a skinny teenager jogged onto the pitch, but skepticism turned to amazement within minutes. Pelé's first touches were electric: quick feints, sudden bursts of speed, and a finishing shot that cracked against the back of the net like a rifle report. Santos signed him on the spot. Life at Santos was a swift education in the professional game's demands. The older players quickly learned that the polite teenager was fearless once the whistle blew. Pelé scored his first professional goal before his 16th birthday. Fans began to travel just to witness his flair: the sudden step-overs, the audacious volleys, the ability to see openings where no one else did. Newspapers started calling him a prodigy, seasoned defenders simply called him unstoppable. In 1957, barely 17, Pelé earned his first call-up to Brazil's national team. The Selecao was still haunted by the infamous Maracanazo, the painful loss to Uruguay in the 1950 World Cup final on home soil. Brazilian football needed a spark, and Pelé was about to become that flame. The 1958 World Cup in Sweden would change everything. At first, Pelé's participation was uncertain, a knee injury threatened to sideline him. But after intense treatment and sheer determination, he boarded the plane to Europe as one of the youngest players in the tournament. Brazil's opening matches showcased the team's attacking flair, but it was in the quarterfinal against Wales that Pelé announced himself to the world. Trapping the ball with effortless control, he spun and fired a precise shot past the goalkeeper, his first World Cup goal and a sign of things to come. In the semi-final against France, the teenager unleashed a masterclass. He scored a hat-trick, each goal more spectacular than the last: a delicate flick past a defender, a lightning strike from the edge of the box, and a composed finish that left the goalkeeper frozen. Suddenly, newspapers from Stockholm to Rio blazed with headlines about the Brazilian boy wonder. The final pitted Brazil against host Sweden in a packed Rosunda stadium. At 17 years and 249 days old, Pelé carried not only his team's hopes but the dreams of an entire nation. Sweden struck first, but Brazil responded with brilliance. Pelé scored twice, the first a breathtaking display of composure, flicking the ball over a defender's head before volleying it home, the second a perfectly timed header that sealed a 5-2 victory. When the final whistle blew, Brazil had its first World Cup title, and Pelé collapsed on the pitch, overwhelmed by emotion. Around the globe, the name Pelé became synonymous with magic. Newspapers hailed him as the king of football. His performance transcended age and geography. People who had never watched a match before were captivated by the skinny teenager with the radiant smile and unstoppable feet. Brazil celebrated not only a sporting triumph but a new national identity built around creativity and joy. And for Pelé, barely out of adolescence, the journey was just beginning. Pelé returned to Brazil after the 1958 triumph to find that life had transformed overnight. Streets in Santos and beyond overflowed with fans who chanted his name, and newspapers from London to Tokyo splashed his picture across their front pages. Yet fame never clouded his purpose. At just 18, he rejoined Santos FC with the same hungry smile he had worn when playing barefoot in Bauru. Inside the white walls of Vila Belmiro Stadium, he trained relentlessly, dribbling through cones for hours and practicing finishing until dusk. His teammates quickly learned that the teenager who had humbled Europe's best defenders was still humble enough to fetch his own water and carry the team's gear. From 1959 to the early 1960s, Santos rode a wave of brilliance that turned the club into a worldwide attraction. Pelé scored goals in every imaginable way, rocketing volleys from outside the box, subtle chips over keepers, and lightning-fast headers that seemed to defy gravity. In 1962, Santos claimed the Copa Libertadores and then the Intercontinental Cup, defeating European champions Benfica in Lisbon. Pelé's display in that final became legend. He scored 3 goals and assisted another, so dazzling that Benfica's supporters applauded him despite their team's loss. For Brazilian fans, Santos was more than a club. It was proof that their style of football, fluid and joyful, could dominate the world. And Pelé was the beating heart of it all. The world wanted him. Offers poured in from European giants, Real Madrid, Juventus, Manchester United, promising fortunes and fame. But Pelé declined, devoted to Santos and to Brazil. President Jânio Quadros even declared him a national treasure, making it legally difficult for foreign clubs to buy him. Rather than confining him, this status elevated him to a symbol of national pride, a living representation of Brazilian art and resilience. The 1962 World Cup in Chile presented a new challenge. Pelé, still just 21, entered the tournament as the game's brightest star. In Brazil's opening match against Mexico, he reminded everyone why. Collecting the ball near midfield, he danced through defenders with effortless control, accelerated past another challenge, and slid a perfect pass that set up a goal. But fate tested him cruelly. In the second match, a harsh tackle left him with a severe groin injury. Doctors warned he might not play again in the tournament. For most players, this would have been crushing. Pelé, though heartbroken, chose to lead in another way, off the pitch. He offered guidance to a young forward named Amarildo and rallied the team from the sidelines. Brazil went on to win the title, proving their depth and cementing their status as back-to-back world champions. For Pelé, the experience deepened his understanding that greatness isn't only measured in goals but in resilience and team spirit. Back home, Pelé continued to redefine what a footballer could be. He toured the globe with Santos, bringing Brazilian football to continents where the game was still a curiosity. In 1969, during a visit to Nigeria at the height of the Biafran Civil War, opposing sides reportedly agreed to a 48-hour ceasefire just to watch Pelé play in Lagos. The image of warring factions pausing to witness his artistry became one of the most powerful symbols of football's universal language. But the journey wasn't without pain. By the mid-1960s, brutal tackling from opponents seeking to neutralize his magic left him battered and at times disillusioned. In the 1966 World Cup in England, defenders targeted him mercilessly. Kicks and rough play went largely unpunished, and Brazil failed to progress beyond the group stage. Pelé left the field limping and furious, vowing never to play another World Cup. Yet inside, he knew his story with the tournament wasn't over. The years that followed tested his resolve but also displayed his unmatched versatility. He worked tirelessly to regain peak fitness, adapting his game to avoid the worst fouls and to protect his legs. He developed an even sharper football intelligence, anticipating tackles, shifting position to exploit space, and using his uncanny vision to orchestrate attacks. By the time the 1970 World Cup in Mexico approached, Pelé, now nearly 30, had matured into a complete footballer, still swift and lethal, but also wise and commanding. The 1970 Brazilian squad is often hailed as the greatest team ever assembled, and Pelé was its crown jewel. Alongside stars like Jairzinho, Tostão, Rivellino, and Carlos Alberto, he led an orchestra of flowing football that mesmerized fans. In the opening match against Czechoslovakia, Pelé scored with a thunderous long-range strike and nearly netted a sensational goal from midfield after noticing the goalkeeper off his line, a bold attempt that missed by inches but ignited imaginations worldwide. Against England, he rose majestically to meet a cross, only to be denied by Gordon Banks' miraculous save, still regarded as one of the greatest in World Cup history. Brazil's campaign built toward a crescendo in the final against Italy at Mexico City's Azteca Stadium. In the 18th minute, Pelé soared above defenders to head home the opening goal, his jump and timing a perfect synthesis of athleticism and instinct. He later set up 2 more goals, including the famous fourth when he calmly laid the ball off for captain Carlos Alberto's thunderous finish, often called the most beautiful team goal in World Cup lore. When the whistle blew on a 4-1 victory, Pelé became the first, and still only, player to win 3 World Cups. His teammates lifted him onto their shoulders as photographers swarmed, capturing an image of triumph that would circle the globe. By the dawn of the 1970s, Pelé was no longer just a footballer, he was a worldwide phenomenon. Heads of state sought meetings with him, children across continents pretended to be him in dusty fields, and journalists struggled to describe his influence. He had scored hundreds of goals for club and country, but his legacy extended beyond statistics. He embodied the art of jogo bonito, the beautiful game, showing that football could be not only competitive but poetic, a universal joy capable of bridging cultures and even halting wars. When the final whistle echoed through Mexico City's Azteca Stadium in June 1970, Pelé stood atop the footballing world with 3 World Cup medals and the adoration of millions. Yet he knew that the story of his life was far from complete. At 30, he had already scored hundreds of goals and conquered every competitive summit, but his influence was just beginning to expand beyond the green rectangle of the pitch. Farewell to the Selecao and Santos glory. Pelé retired from Brazil's national team in 1971 after 92 caps and 77 goals, a record that stood for decades. His final match for the Selecao at Rio's Maracana drew a sea of yellow shirts and a wave of emotions. Fans cried, chanted, and thanked the man who had given their nation a joyful identity. Though his international career ended, his love for Santos FC endured. He continued dazzling domestic and international audiences, scoring with artistry and inventiveness that left defenders chasing shadows. By the early 1970s, Pelé's goal tally had soared beyond 1,000, a figure so monumental it seemed almost mythical. On November 19, 1969, he netted his 1,000th official goal in a packed Maracana. As the ball crossed the line from the penalty spot, the stadium erupted. Journalists flooded the field, fans swarmed, and Pelé held the ball aloft in a moment that transcended sport. He dedicated the milestone to Brazil's children, urging the nation to address poverty and inequality. It was a glimpse of how he saw his platform: football as a vehicle for social change. New frontiers in the United States. In 1975, Pelé stunned the football world by signing with the New York Cosmos of the North American Soccer League (NASL). Some questioned why the greatest player on earth would join a fledgling league in a country where soccer was a curiosity. Pelé saw a new challenge: to popularize the beautiful game in a nation dominated by baseball, basketball, and American football. From the moment he arrived in New York, he was treated like a rock star. Celebrities from Mick Jagger to Muhammad Ali attended matches at Giants Stadium, where crowds swelled to over 70,000, unthinkable for American soccer at the time. Children who had never kicked a ball before began begging their parents for soccer cleats. Pelé delivered on the field as well, scoring stunning goals and leading the Cosmos to the NASL Championship in 1977. His farewell match that October was a symbolic bridge between worlds. He played one half for Santos and one half for the Cosmos, uniting Brazil and the United States in celebration. Ambassador of the beautiful game. After officially retiring, Pelé's life transformed into a global mission of diplomacy and inspiration. Governments, charities, and sports federations invited him to speak, play in exhibition matches, and promote peace. In Nigeria during the late 1960s, even before joining the Cosmos, reports of a 48-hour ceasefire so people could watch him play had already made him an emblem of unity. Post-retirement, that role only deepened. He became a United Nations ambassador for ecology and the environment, a UNESCO Goodwill Ambassador, and later Brazil's Minister of Sports in the 1990s, where he championed reforms to protect young athletes from exploitation. Everywhere he went, Africa, Asia, Europe, children and adults flocked to meet him, not just for autographs but for the hope he represented. Pelé often said, "Success is no accident. It is hard work, perseverance, learning, studying, sacrifice, and love of what you are doing." His words carried the weight of lived experience, inspiring countless young players from the favelas of Rio to the streets of Lagos. Records and recognition. Pelé's official goal count remains staggering. 1,283 goals in 1,367 professional matches, though some statisticians debate the tally depending on which competitions are included. Regardless of the exact number, his artistry is beyond dispute. He was named FIFA World Player of the Century, shared with Diego Maradona, Athlete of the Century by the International Olympic Committee, and received honorary knighthood from Queen Elizabeth II. Time and again, journalists, players, and historians crowned him the greatest footballer in history. But Pelé always viewed himself as more than statistics. He embraced technology early, appearing in documentaries, television shows, and even films like Escape to Victory alongside Sylvester Stallone and Michael Caine, bringing football's magic to new audiences. He recorded music, wrote books, and used every medium to share the joy the game had given him. Personal challenges and enduring grace. Behind the luminous smile were personal challenges, business ventures that failed, the pressure of fame, and the complexities of family life. Yet he faced them with the same resilience that marked his playing career. Pelé often credited his humble upbringing for keeping him grounded. He remained approachable, delighting in conversations with fans of every background, never losing the sense of wonder that first drew him to a rag ball on the dusty streets of Três Coracoes. Immortal influence. Pelé's influence echoes in every corner of modern football. Brazilian stars from Zico to Ronaldo Nazario and Neymar have cited him as inspiration. His style, fluid, inventive, and fearless, reshaped tactics and training, encouraging generations to blend athleticism with artistry. Globally, he proved football could be a universal language, capable of bridging cultures and even pausing wars. Even as age and health challenges came in later years, Pelé's spirit remained indomitable. He greeted the world with warmth and humor, reminding everyone that joy is the essence of the game. In stadiums from São Paulo to Seoul, murals and statues of O Rei, the king, testify to his lasting presence. Legacy beyond measure. Pelé's story is ultimately about more than goals or trophies. It is the tale of a boy who began with a ball of rags and rose to become a symbol of hope for millions. He showed that brilliance can spring from the humblest beginnings, that creativity can triumph over hardship, and that sport can unite humanity in moments of pure magic. When people speak of the beautiful game, they are speaking, in part, of Pelé, of the way he played with a grin that invited the whole world to share in his wonder. His life remains a beacon for dreamers everywhere, proof that with passion, resilience, and love, one can transcend limits and leave a legacy that time itself cannot erase.